Okay, welcome to the roundup. And what a crazy week it's been
Oh,
in our world. I don't think we can, Kurt. I don't think we can talk about anything without sort of talking about the George Floyd explosion across the United States that
just so
hurt our
disappointing.
friends to the south. And
Yeah.
please all be safe and smart down there. This is a very complex time. A lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and unfortunately, a lot of crap going on. And it kind of plays into insurance a bit, doesn't it?
Well, it always does, Pete. I mean, let's face it, it's the grease that keeps things rolling here in our world. And man, you're seeing some huge losses taking place, lots of fires,
Yeah.
vandalism, personal property being damaged, auto, lots of cars being lit on fire. So, people who've taken, some shortcuts recently, maybe because of loss of income due to COVID, potentially could not be covered if they
Yeah.
bought liability only. I think there's a lot of states where you could run just with liability and no comp coverage. So
Oh,
that'll be disappointing to those folks.
well, imagine now if you're in one of those centers where your building's been burned or looted or damaged somehow, vandalism, and you hadn't been open for a while because of, order. So, civil order. And now you change your insurance and you maybe didn't have vacancy past 30 days, or it was deemed no losses paid by 30 days after 30 days of vacancy, depending on what's in the wordings. This is a very complex situation when it comes to insurance. And I think when you look out to brokers and agents, there's a lot of learning to be done. And we don't know how, we don't know how this shapes everything up because we're in unknown territory of threat vectors right now in terms of what you think about for insuring property, particularly commercial property. We've already had issues with BI. We know
Mhm.
there is a ton of issues going on, class action lawsuits brewing left, right, and center. What do you think comes out of this?
Well, I mean, hey, if you had a all risk policy, or even named perils actually on building, riot is a covered peril.
That's right.
Mind you, you all of a sudden bolt on a building that's beyond 30 days vacant because civil order is you're not supposed to be at work. And maybe the owner, like you say, Pete, put a vacancy type permit on it. It does bring in a whole other realm of exclusions, including plate glass coverage, limited plate glass coverage. So, we're seeing a lot of windows getting broken. It may sound like, hey, whatever, it's a window. But you know what? If it's your building and you've got, a couple 100 feet of glass across the front of it and you're a small business owner, that's a huge loss to you, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Or
not that these
signage.
people are thinking about that right now. So, yeah,
Signage is another one that can have a
sure.
specific, you need specific coverage on. The cost of channel lettering and backlit with LED and all that technology in there, it can be an ugly expense. And that's another one that has to be thought of. And again, we're back into BI and how does business interruption apply here? So maybe you're insured for the physical damage, whether it be fire, whether it be vandalism and the property theft or damage inside of your stock and everything. But what if you can't reopen? Are you covered for business interruption now?
Well, and what if you weren't open prior to the loss even happening? So you already were interrupted. Kind of like the scenario of a hurricane where you get the wind hit the building and then a wave comes along and wipes the building out. So is it the wave that you're making the claim for, or is it the wind, right? And this is sort of similar in nature in that you've got a pandemic, you've been told to be closed, and now all of a sudden you've got a building that's uh, potentially was capable of reopening, now can't.
Yep.
And here we go. So I think there's going to be some questions being asked, obviously, come Monday morning, and we'll have answers for everybody next week on what we're hearing.
Yeah.
One
It'll
of
be
those questions,
fascinating.
it'll
Like,
be fascinating. Yeah. One of those questions I threw at Pete just earlier was similar but different, is on the fact that back in March, a lot of people scrambled to come back to Canada or return home wherever they may be if traveling in the Europe and getting back to the US. Now, restrictions are loosening. People are going to start to travel again. Travel health was one of the big issues people returned home because of.
Yes.
Are we now in a position where we don't have travel health coverage? We're talking the pandemic's a known event. It's not sudden and unforeseeable like most insurance. So is it a pre-existing condition? I don't know how you would phrase it
Or
in the travel health world.
is it now listed as an exclusion on travel health? And how are different insurers going to open up? So if the economy and you know, we have our chief health officers saying we can open up provinces or states and people can begin traveling. You may have a 14-day isolation period upon arrival to your destination or arrival from a destination, coming home. But if they say it's safe to travel amid precautions, how are insurers, when it comes to travel health, going to adjust to this? Are they going to just say, no way, the risk is too great? And what happens if you're someone who has a spouse like I do, who plans well in advance, and we have a trip planned to go out to Vancouver in July, and we booked this in February?
Yeah, well, you're going to either have travel credits with an airline, which will
Yeah,
come in the way of vouchers now here in Canada, or a credit with the airline if you choose not to go. But if you really want to go, Pete, you've got your mom out there, and you guys have friends out on the coast. So you say, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. And let's say, heaven forbid, something does happen.
yeah,
Now, again, it's a big question. We don't have an answer here for all of these today.
no,
Today's the show of questions, folks. So we're not giving
yeah.
you answers. We're simply just asking questions.
And I'll throw you out an interesting variable. We have some friends who rent a house in Laguna Beach down outside of LA. They go down and they rent it for the winter and they come back and forth. So their rental contract is up June 1st. They had to leave to get back to Canada, but they left their stuff there thinking they'd probably be able to get back. They can't go.
Yeah.
So now what happens? They've got clothes, personal items, all sorts of things. They're working with the landlord on this to deal with it, but they can't go back. And if they could go back, would they be covered? Could you buy travel insurance for that? I don't think you could. And I understand that. But on the flip side, they were looking at flights down to LA, and the flights were like $3,000.
Are they
So
really?
yeah, they were not cheap.
Wow.
So
Oh, wow.
so here's the other thing with flight credits. We're looking at ours saying, okay, well, what are we going to change the flights?
You're
But
going to Brandon now.
yeah, exactly. I'm trying. I might as well just fly to Thunder Bay or
Actually, Thunder Bay is
Fargo.
pricey.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what do you? So now I could cancel what I paid for the flights for my wife and my youngest son and I to go out to Vancouver and just do them. But then I have to pay the difference of the next flight. So I might get $2,000 back, but I might need 6,000 to pay for the
Yeah.
flight. So I don't know what
to,
am I
to
going to
go
do.
anywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, Taylor our daughter flew home from Toronto on Tuesday, and
right.
we booked the flights 2 months ago. It was about $400 one way, but
Yeah,
still pretty pricey if you think about a round trip to
yeah.
Toronto at $800. But these are a lot of questions that are coming out, and I think whether it be the riots that are happening today or travel that's happening tomorrow, it just tells you again how interesting insurance is and how there's really
Yeah.
never something that's written in stone. It's just an evolving product that has to change with the environment.
In speaking of evolving products, it doesn't evolve much more differently and diversely with products than it does for auto insurance. And when you're in the situation that we see in the US, depending on where you are, where it is entirely private auto insurance, hosts of different carriers and insurance companies and options, which also brings a host of different products and variables in the product. Vandalized cars set on fire, you may not have coverage for that, despite being a complete innocent bystander and having no real reason to not think you're covered. But depending on the coverage you purchased, such as, do you have a comprehensive coverage on it, which might, on some carriers, give you coverage for vandalism, fire, anything that's done by a third party, as opposed to just third party liability, which some people might think protects you in case someone doesn't have insurance or the underinsured motorist or whatever it is, right? Like there's another issue on the auto side.
It's definitely complex that people who are, in a financial situation right now. They're in a financial crunch. We did an interview last week with JD Power and
Yeah, Tom
Associates
Super.
on insurance with Tom Super, and Tom was commenting about the survey recently, a COVID survey they've done with respect to auto insurance, and the fact is people have tuned back their coverage because they're not using their cars. And if you lived in a neighborhood that was, predominantly, seen as safe, doesn't mean it can't be exposed to a riot. And
Yeah,
having people travel through your neighborhood and doing things that you wake up to in the morning, and heaven forbid your car's been damaged and you decided to find a way to reduce some of your overhead. So yeah, it's a real, it's a real sad case in some ways that people aren't respecting some of these someone's private property. And I get it. Like you said earlier, Pete, it's a complex issue. At the same time, insurance always isn't as simple as you would hope it to be, and as such, it could, adversely affect a lot of people,
yeah,
and that's a sad situation
that's
because that
exactly.
wasn't anybody's intent.
No,
So
and speaking of intent, never, never let a complex situation prevent scammers from coming out. And here we have it in our own province, but I'm sure it's happening elsewhere because people have had to switch to this remote kind of digital pivot to do insurance transactions, particularly with auto. We are seeing people getting phone calls representing an insurance company, talking to them and trying to swindle them or redirect them to disclose personal information and such. We can't be the only place where it's happening, and it's probably happening across the board as you know criminals look to take opportunity. I mean, I can't go a week without some random phone call to my phone about me having a problem with my income taxes or I'm in violation of something. And I usually let it play out for a little bit and give them a fake social insurance number and see what they say. And then they run it up and say, "Oh yeah, you're in big trouble." I'm like, buddy, they're just not there.
yeah.
And but for some people, they could be really freaked out. There's a lot of information
Oh yeah.
going around.
Yeah.
It gets really tough to make sense of it all. So you know what? If it's not someone calling you, tell them to send you a letter, and
That's
don't give
right.
them their address because they'll have it on file.
They
So, yeah,
should. Exactly.
advise your clients to put stuff out on your social media feeds that you telling people how you're going to behave in this and that what scams about, and go from there. This is a great chance for brokers and agents to really bring back the trust value, the one-to-one relationship value that's super important. Um, so you brought up Tom Superkurt, and we recorded him on Friday, and we had some technical problems. So there's about 30 minutes of
Of
content
Tom.
there
Yeah.
with Tom, and oh man, he was good. And my computer crashed as we were recording, and then we rebooted, kind of kick started again, and it did the exact same thing. So I haven't gone in and listened to the audio yet, but we may have a podcast with Tom. We may not, and
We'll make it work. I
we'll
know
make
he's
it work.
really
But
interested in getting back on the insurance
yeah,
podcast because the
but
guy
to
gets it.
yeah, and maybe we'll just finish out with a little bit there and do a little bit of editorial to kind of clean it up and show where the cuts are. But the great thing is Tom's such a great guy that he understood, technology happens. We're all living in weird times with technology as we try to do things. And he's just sort of agreed to come back on and maybe we can hit him on some other stuff too, because we were pretty specific to some cool things done with some surveys that JD Power had made, particularly in the auto insurance sector and the direct to
With COVID. Yeah.
and with COVID. And once we got into that, right, we could have gone for about 2 hours with Tom because that guy's he's a wealth of knowledge.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and they're available to brokers and companies to be a source of knowledge to better structure yourself moving forward and have a better understanding of what you need to do to be competitive in the market, whether it be digital, whether it be pandemic, whether it be riot, things like this. You need data, and data is the
Yeah,
key. We've always talked about that, and JD is definitely giving brokers and companies more data than we've had in the past. And I think it's a real plus to have someone like that on the show. I will get it
yeah,
up hopefully on the air in the next 10 days, and yeah, we'll get that one out for everyone to tune in.
It'll be fun. We'll patch it together. It'll be good. But hey, that's it.
Between now and then, you got the Allison
Oh
with
yeah,
the
Allison.
social media tips that are up right now. So tune that one in, and of course, any of our past podcasts that deal with issues that are always current to any broker or any insurance
Yeah,
agent, and a lot of insurance underwriters. So tune them
exactly.
in, and have a great week, everyone.
Yeah, and big thanks to Nora Black from IBAO for the comment on Allison and what she brought. That was great to see on the LinkedIn feed. So thanks everyone.
Awesome.
Having a great week. Be safe. Be safe. Be smart.